Welcome to Cafdil TV, and you're watching Religious Vocation Digest. I believe you enjoyed our previous edition of this program, and join us on Facebook, Cafdil Cape Coast, YouTube, Cafdil Edu. Send us your comments, your suggestions, your contributions, and then let us also know where you're joining us from, so that we do these discussions together. If it is your first time watching Cafdil TV, Cafdil, as you can see on the screen, is CAFDIL, representing the Cardinals Foundation for Distance Learning, and we are coming to you live from our studios in Cape Coast. Thank you for that. Poverty, obedience, right? Yes. What is obedience in the Evangelical Counsels?
There is always this saying, maybe amongst consecrated persons, to say that is the most difficult of all the vows.
Are you sure? I'll come to the most difficult one.
That is what some say, and they add up to say, as you grow, as you go on, as you age in the life of consecration, because it gets to a certain point when probably, Father Moses was my second-year apostolate master. And so if at a certain point I would have to tell him, go to Savelugu, brother, pack your things and go. He has to say, yes, Father. Then I put in the letter and I stamp. Now him going is not because, I've commanded. And his obedience to that is not to me, but because I'm doing that after the pattern of Christ, looking at the good, the common good. What is the purpose of the mission or the sending? That is what he will look at. And so, as I just retorted earlier on to say, okay, as he looks, he would say, but this guy, I was the one who exposed him at a certain point into this life, and now he is telling me. So if this person does not detach himself from his will, emptying it into the hands of God, then at that particular time, the respective superior or the respective person who is giving the command or the directive would become a stumbling block in the consecration. So obedience entails in this, just drawing from the same line of this young man, such that one self detaches himself from his own will. For sure, I want to be in Accra. I want to be in this parish. I want to engage myself in this apostolate. But here is the case, you are needed elsewhere. So just like Christ, who was obedient to God even unto death, obedient to God even unto death, that is how the consecrated person also does. So from Christ, I would also detach myself from my will, that if my life consists in even going to the extent of even emptying everything of myself, then I consecrate myself based on this spirit, based on this understanding, then I detach myself from my will and obey. Not the one because he is acting in the person of Christ.
What I said about chastity, I think it applies also to obedience. Of course, now for the sake of discussions, we are taking them one after the other, but all the vows together comes to one word, love. But obedience also is a question of choice. Let me take from where Father Francis took it from. I obey another person by choice, because I freely submit myself. The beauty of consecrated life is this, that the one who is my minister in Franciscan circles, we call minister or guardian, or in other contexts, the one who is my superior or moderator, no matter the word you use. He is so by my choice. I choose by my election that this person becomes the one who animates all of us together. And I obey them not because they have authority over me, but I obey because I choose to submit myself. Like Jesus, though he could have grasped the equality with God, but he didn't, but he submitted. So the the obedience is a choice that I make to freely submit, an expression of my freedom. I freely choose to submit myself. Again, I insist on this point. If you want to be truly free and independent, if you really want to be happy in this life, learn to submit to God and everything will be okay. Because when you don't, you might submit to something else which might in the end enslave you or oppress you. So obedience is this surrender into the hands of God through the ones that I myself have elected as my superior or my minister, my guardian. Wherever he asks me to go, I obey not because he is a holy man. I obey not because he has commanded me that which I like. I obey because I freely choose to. And this is what the consecrated life is. And that's how it becomes really a radical following of Christ. If we can say that the road to heaven, as Jesus says, is a narrow road, to consecrate oneself with these vows, poverty, chastity, obedience, is to squeeze that road, which is already narrow for everybody. So it's not an easy life, but it's a very beautiful life.
Sure
Good things
is.
don't come easy.
Yeah. Before we took the vows one after the other, I mentioned that there was a fourth one, which is community life. And Father Francis said obedience is the most difficult one.
As some say.
But majority of religious say that community life, which is not part of the vows, which we have made a vow, is the most difficult one. Do you agree to that?
You see, now maybe we have to take away the confusion.
Yes.
You said religious say. You know already that by itself, not all consecrated persons are religious.
Yes.
So this is a question of religious. Those
Yes.
who are religious,
Yes.
who make community life an important thing.
Yeah.
Those who are cloistered, those who are secluded, they had properly a fourth vow, that is of stability. So in Cape Coast, for example, nuns have come where the nuns used to be the poor class. Now we have Benedictine sister nuns there. And when they arrived there, the first place they looked for was the place they will be buried, because they have come to stay, and that is it. So now, maybe religious might be struggling with community life, but others are also struggling with other issues because it doesn't really become the central point. But let's address that. At least for us also, we are religious. For us Franciscans, and for us conventual Franciscans, the word convent is part of our name. So living together becomes the thing for us. And our capacity to be able to become disciples after Christ, like the apostles were, this is what we are trying to arrive at. But you know that even the apostles, when they were following Jesus, there were always wranglings among them, and Jesus would be there always teaching them and helping them to bond. So it can be a difficult thing trying to come together and live a life of one heart. Community life is life in common, fraternal life, loving one another as brothers. But then what we are called to is communion. So we talk about going to communion. Fraternal communion is loving one another in Christ, even to the point of dying for one another. Then this is consecrated life as far as the part that religious comes in. We live in fraternal communion, ready to love one another in Christ, even to die for one another. It is not an easy thing to do, but with God everything is possible. We try to live that. We try.
Yeah, so the issue of community life, as you just said, that others say is difficult. I think that is something which it is not a given. You create it. Yeah, it is not something which is, in the philosophical term, it's not a priori. It's not something which is there. It is a posteriori. Something we come together then we make it happen. The fraternal love is something we are all drawing from Christ. So if somebody will say blood is thicker than water, even in the family there are a lot of scuffles even among those who are related by blood. But in the community also, the same blood of Christ is what has drawn us. And the same water of baptism is what has also brought us together. So we are standing on this to say that, and that is the witness that we give to the world, to say, even though we are not from the same womb, we are not of the same bloodline, it is possible to live because of Christ. It is possible to love as Christ loved each and every one. So the one who has consecrated himself as a religious, living in community, is to share that same love with the other person whom I never know, I didn't know. Now, Father Francis, in his writings, would say that the Lord gave me brothers. So the other person whom I found in the community is just the same person. I grew up in the family, I didn't know how he came about, but he is there. And so, since he is in the community with me, we live together. Living together doesn't mean that everything is going to be serene. But living together means that even in times when there are a lot of scuffles, we live together. So that is the community. And it is not the building, but it is us. And so conventuals, that coming together is what we are living. So it is not only the sisters who have convents. Our communities, they say, our friaries, where the friars stay, are convents. So we also stay in convents.
So if you are a young man or a young woman and you are interested because the way they live together is so nice, don't come to consume it. Come and create some. Add your own to it, and then we can all enjoy together. Otherwise, if you think that you are only coming to enjoy it, you might come and you realize that no one has created it. So we come and together we will create something beautiful and we'll live together.
Sure. Father Francis has already declared his stance when it comes to the most difficult vow to live. To you, Father Moses, which of these vows is difficult to live?
To say that one is difficult to live is to undervalue the other.
There are some that you could easily, but
I don't know how it is easy to live poverty, or it is easy to live chastity, or it is easy to live obedience. At different stages in a person's life, one might look easy because they have not actually understood the full import of one or the other. Okay. So because I've not really understood what it means to be poor, I think the poverty is easy. But when I understand it, then I realize that it is not easy. Because once you live poverty well, you will live chastity, you will live obedience. At a point, maybe when you are young, in your 20s, 30s, early 40s even, maybe chastity might be a difficulty. So you think that when you are older, it will be easy. No, it doesn't work like that. Or obedience, they say that when you are young, when they say everything you follow, but when you grow, it is not true that when you are young and they say everything you follow. At every point, one or the other, once the central issue about the capacity of love is not working well, any of the vows is a difficult thing. And whoever takes any vow and puts all his energy on it and live it well, the others are also lived out. Okay. So I can't really sit here and say that this is difficult more than the others. That would be polarization, and it is not true that one is difficult than the other, at least in my understanding.
Okay. So you just joining us, I know you've been watching a Religious Vocation Digest, but since you just joined us and you're wondering what we're discussing today, we're discussing the Evangelical Counsels. It is never too late because you can get a recap of this on our social media handles: Facebook, Cafdil Cape Coast, YouTube, Cafdil Edu. You know, as humans, it is always appropriate to check and verify what we consume. So if you want to take water, then I will recommend Friars Valley bottling water to you. I've been talking about it for a number of weeks now, and I'm not saying it because I have to say it. I'm saying it because I have consumed it and I know how it is. I don't want to say it is medicinal because because they are prepared by the Franciscan friars. They are here after all their busy schedules for the day. They finish. They still have time to do this water, and in preparation, you know, they'll be praying the rosary, the psalms, and everything. So you can imagine what has gone into it. It is also FDA approved. You can contact them on 0550 492 316, 0550 492 316. You can find them in Salt Pond, Afengua Junction. Just give them a call and then tell them how many boxes you need. Even if you want to order for 5,000 boxes, they are ready to send it to you. So now we are going to learn something about the Franciscan friars. I know you've heard of them. You've seen them with their gray habits, the white coat, walking around town, or maybe you visited their valley of prayer and silence, but you couldn't get time to interact with them. So now that they are here, they are going to give us a brief history of their congregation. The vocation director is going to take us through.
So with the Franciscan friars, there is quite a lengthy history as far as our own origins, our own reality, establishment, and what has come to be of the Franciscan friars. But I think everything goes back to the Middle Ages with this young man, Francis from Assisi, as a buoyant young man with all the interest. And as at that time in Italy, their society was divided into 3 groups or social classes, we would call them, and he belonged to the middle class because of the parents. The father was a merchant, and so dealing in textiles, traveling around, at least there was some funds, or there was money which they could live on. With this young man of his age in that milieu, the only noble thing that one would look out for was basically to be a knight, a soldier. And so all the prowess of most of the men of his age was basically when you are adorned in the clothing as a knight, and even waging war for your town, waging war for Assisi, was something which was noble to do. And those are the things he was pursuing. Besides all this, he was also a joyful youth, talk of the town because there was money. So if it has to be going in our modern day language to the club or to whatever, he was enjoying himself. And it was during one of these wars, these conflicts amongst the towns, that is where he got captured. It is in this moment we could say that he has calmed down, Then he begins as somebody captured in war, definitely sick, wounded. That moment when the person has calmed down, then he hears this voice in a dream to say, whom do you want to serve? Is it the slave or the master? Now, these voices or these things from a dream can become troubling as well. And so, reflecting further, at the end of the day, once you are captured in war, imprisoned, if you are released and brought back, all these things he kept reflecting and thinking of caught him to become a bit, to say, confused. And so, trying to give attention to this voice or to this message which came to him, at certain point, through, even with, I think with the history helps us with that of the influence of the mother as well to help him come out of all these things. But at certain point, this voice or this call, he realized, was becoming so much clearer to him and so much vivid that it was one time he had gone to pray in a church called a church dedicated to Saint Damien, San Damiano, a small dilapidated church. And through that prayer is where he gets this call from a cross, a crucifix, called St. Damian's crucifix, to say, Francis, go rebuild my church. And so from that moment, we could say that could be a definite moment of his call. Go rebuild my church. For sure, in literal sense, seeing churches around which are dilapidated, he has to collect stones and try to put them up. But as he went on, the voice became clearer as to understand what rebuilding my church would entail. And so, still going about rebuilding this church, another episode comes when he gets into Mass. And there is this reading from Matthew 10. And Matthew 10, where Jesus sends out the disciples 2 by 2. And if you look at the missionary directive which they were given, not to take this, not to take that, when you go greet this. Now from chapter 5 to 42 in Matthew 10 is what entails all these directives. And looking at all these things, reflecting on this, legend says that he jumped out after Mass to say, this is what I want to do. This is what I really want to do with my life. And so we could say those are the beginnings of his life. Intentionally, he didn't have the mindset of forming a religious community as we have. That is why in the Testament it says, the Lord gave me brothers. Because in Assisi, living in this way of life, even denouncing whatever the father has or giving him in front of the bishop, at a certain point, people thought this guy has gone mad. But all these things was actually attracting a lot of people to this way of life. Not to enter into the history as far as what was happening in the Middle Ages, 11th, 12th, 13th century. There is more that characterizes why and how people were living. But he went about now without anything but going begging. Going begging. And that life of witness was antecedents of this idea of poverty, as far as Franciscan poverty is concerned. And so it attracted many people, many young men. Attracting them began that community of brothers, and they were calling themselves brothers, until they went getting approval from the church, because at that particular time, if you would want to proclaim or preach the gospel in the name of the church, definitely you need the ecclesiastical approval. And so to be able to do that, you would have to go to Rome, which they did. And at a certain point, they got a verbal approval, and later on they will get their approval. As I said, it's a very long history that we would say as far as the Franciscans in our origin is concerned. But we have come to be, as a religious order. And the religious order as Franciscans are of 3 families. The first order consists of 3 male religious orders. The conventual Franciscans, then there is the Capuchin Franciscans, and there is also this group which supposedly should be referred to as the observants or the observandi, but they prefer to go by the name OFM. So at the end of the day, all of us are called the Order of Friars Minor. So the order of the brothers who are minor, simple, just the same idea of poverty. So goes by even with the color of the vestment. As certain parts of the world, we are referred to as the Grey Friars because of the idea of penance. I always make a joke to say the faithful receive ashes every year on Ash Wednesday, but we as Franciscans, we are always putting on ash. So that idea of mourning and penance is with us. Let me leave here. Maybe Father Moses can fill in some details to that.
Yes, thank you for the exposition, especially on the life of Francis himself, because the Franciscan history begins with him. We can say the order begins the moment when the first person comes to him and he wants to join him, he wants to be part of his life. And by the time they are about 12, they go to the Bishop of Rome, so to the Pope. At that time, it was not Rome, it was the Bishop at the Lateran.
Yeah.
So they go to the Pope Innocent III, asking that their way of life could be approved and that they could go about preaching penance and peace. And the Pope sees the enthusiasm, even their radicality, and says, okay, I give you my approval. You are just 12 of you. Continue on, and then when you become many, come to me, back to me. And that's how we can say the Franciscan movement now, from Francis of Assisi to the Franciscan movement, started its course. In the lifetime of St. Francis, we are talking about 1208, 1209, when they went to see the Pope, up to 1226, when Francis died. By the time he died, there were thousands of them, and many people were attracted by the way Francis carried himself, and the issue of the fraternity I was talking about. Even one man, Jacques de Vitry, he was coming from France to be ordained bishop by the Pope. And then the Pope had died in Perugia. They had laid him in state. Robbers came to steal everything that they had used to decorate him, prepare him. So he was really disappointed to see how Christianity has gone wayward, how the society had gone wayward. But he commented that he saw a group of people called the Lesser Brothers, the Friars Minor, and they were exceptional. And he had very beautiful things to say. And more people got attracted. And that's how the Franciscan movement has continued on. Over 800 years, it has continued. This year, in these years, we are celebrating a lot of 800 years. Last year, we celebrated the 800 years of the event at Greccio, where Francis made the very first crepe, a live Christmas crepe, and from that we have had the Christmas crepes up to our day. This year we are celebrating the 800 years, 2024, of the rule. The rule was 2023. 2023, the rule, and then Greccio. The next year, 2025, is going to be the Laudato Si, that famous song that Francis wrote. 2026 is going to be the celebration of 800th anniversary of the death, the Transitus of Francis. So these are very important milestones. This year now comes to mind is the 800th anniversary of the stigmata of St. Francis. He was blessed with the 5 wounds of Christ in the arms, in the feet, and also at his side. And over the centuries, 8 centuries of existence, we have had many friars who have become saints. He was explaining about the different branches, because it was so much of a luxuriant tree. Many people understood Francis differently. The friars understood Francis differently, and that's what led to the different orders that are the first order, simplifying history like that. But in the end, now there's every effort to make sure that we all live the Franciscan life. We can find many saints who, many persons who followed the Franciscan way of life and they became saints. And there is constantly a lot of religious congregations that are inspired by the way Francis went about his things. Popes, we can see the clearest example with the recent Pope. He took the name Francis, practically orienting the whole church to something of St. Francis because he sees that he has something to offer. So it's a challenge even for us also, Franciscans, to be able to go back to our roots, that which inspired Francis to go repairing the church, so that we may be the ones who actually rebuild the church to repair it, not just in the physical structures, but the church as the people of God, as the family of God.
Okay. So those female congregations that has Francis added to their names, were they also founded by St. Francis, or they adopted children?
So practically, Francis founded the three orders. So the Franciscans, together with St. Clare, the Poor Clares, and then the third order, which is made up of seculars, so people who are in the world and follow the Franciscan life. A lot of people wanted to join, even married persons, the women, the wives were going to the Poor Clares, the husbands were joining the friars. And Francis said, in order not to break up family life, we make something also so they can live it in their own lives. But after that, many people have been inspired to follow the way of Francis, so the rule of St. Francis. Also because by the time Francis of the Fourth Lateran Council, 1215, the church said that there will be no new rules for the church. So whichever congregation comes up has to take one of the existing rules. In fact, Francis was asked to take one of the existing, but because earlier Pope Innocent III had already given him approval, so he was allowed to have his own in 1223. So there are many congregations, not only female, but even male congregations that are inspired. Even we can think of Ignatius of Loyola, so the Jesuit. He was inspired by Francis in one way or the other. When he was on his sickbed, he heard the story of Francis of Dominic, and that is how he also made his own discernment and came. So not Francis directly as a person, but his spirit is behind a lot of congregations that doesn't even have the name Francis in it or nothing Franciscan, but they follow the Franciscan rule, including the Missionaries of Charity of St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta. It's all the Franciscan rule that they follow as a spirituality.
Okay. So why are you called friars? We know fathers, sisters, brothers. Why friars?
Why were you calling me father? My name is Friar Moses. Anyway, so we are friar means is derived from the Latin fratre, which is brother, because we are a brotherhood. Among the brothers, some are priests, some are not priests, but it doesn't make a difference. Okay. We are all a brotherhood of men who have given ourselves to follow what God gifted Francis. So that's why we are called friar. So a friar means brother. As simple as that.
Okay. So how did you meet the brothers?
So I got to meet the Franciscans through the vocation promoter at that time, Father Joseph Blay, at a vocation rally. I think it was in Ashaman at that time. I was staying in Accra those days, preparing to go to university, and I went for vocation rally. And every congregation came to speak about their congregation, about their religious order. And of all those who spoke, I found that maybe he was the one who was more attractive in the way he expressed himself, also because he was animating the whole group. So after I went to speak to him on a personal level, then he invited me to come to the house to come and see him. We follow it up, and the rest is history.
Father Francis or Saint Francis?
I'm also Friar Francis.
How did you meet the Franciscans?
Okay. Mine was in secondary school when I was in the final year. It was a friend of mine who made mention of the Franciscans. He is also a Dominican now. So once you talk of the Franciscans, there is also the other, the twin or the cousin of the Dominicans. Yeah, because they began that movement in the Middle Ages. And so he made mention of it when I had shared, because I was the organizer of the Catholic students. And so he was the president. I made mention of this interest of being a priest, to live a certain way of life. And he says, okay, there's the Dominicans, he mentioned quite a number of them. So I said, but who are the Franciscans? Probably because of my name, why? So I remember asking, why was I given the name Francis? So after school, I just said, okay, maybe there is a reason, maybe a connection as to the name. So let me find out where they are, because in Kumasi, you don't find the Franciscans. So at one point, they used to sell these magazines, the Catholic Messenger. So that is where I just took the messenger, checked the contacts, and I just made a call. And it happened to go to our printing press. And they directed me now to the vocation promoter, who was Father Emmanuel Akwe. Yes, and that is where we started conversation, come and see. And through that was the first time I had to come to Cape Coast, to South Pond from Kumasi. So that is how I got in touch with the friars. I had not seen a friar before in a habit or whatever, but it's just the name Francis, then following up, then here we are.
Okay. So there are still others or young men who have not encountered any friar, that is physically. Now they are seeing you. Speak to their hearts why they should come and join the Franciscan friars.
As for speaking to their heart, I don't know how or in which words I can put to speak to the heart of young men, because of probably because of the times that we live in. Yeah, I deal with quite a number of young people, and even some older than myself, aspiring to live the life of consecration and also wanting to become Franciscans. Speaking to their heart, I don't know what words I would use, but I would just borrow from the words of Christ. Come and see. When you come, definitely you would see. Then from there, you would stay, as the disciples of John stayed and never returned. Yes. So, as Franciscans, you can get us on these contacts: 027-333-5115. These are all WhatsApp numbers, or 020-651-3865. I take it again: 027-333-5115, or 0206-513-865. Or you can get us even on Facebook, Conventual Franciscan Vocations Ghana. Time to time, you find some videos popping on even TikTok on Conventual Vocations Ghana. Get in touch with us, or even Franciscan Valley of Prayer and Silence. You get to see more of the apostolates we are engaged in retreat, in spiritual direction, and in diverse apostolates that we are engaged in there. On Facebook, once you get there, the friars will get you in touch with us.
Okay. So in case you couldn't pick those numbers, you can still call 0550-492-316, 0550-492-316. Though this is for the water company, but when you want to join them, he is definitely going to direct you to the vocations director. Father Moses, your final words.
So, final words, since we have been talking about consecrated life, evangelical counsels, we come back to that and then to say that Jesus has paved the way for us. So he calls us into this love. And the capacity is already in us. So it's already an encouragement for us who have already consecrated ourselves to the Lord to live it out in such a way that our very presence has something to speak to the world. And living poverty, living chastity, living obedience, and living it enthusiastically has a lot to say to our world, and to draw it more and more, pointing it to Christ. This is what we are hoping that those of us who are already consecrated to the Lord will be able to take this very, very strongly. Then, of course, others also might want to come and join. But it is because they want to come and contribute, not just to come and consume what others have created. Francis of Assisi says it clearly. It is a shame that the saints have actually followed the lamp all the way to the cross, and we just want to enjoy them, enjoy celebrating the saints. No, we want to follow also suit. So it is really a beautiful life. It's not an easy life, but definitely a beautiful life, living the life of the consecrated person, vowing poverty, chastity, obedience, and giving yourself to Christ in a very radical way. And doing that for me as a Franciscan, not worthy of it, but God calls me. And every day I try to respond in the apostolate I do as much as is possible to this call to love, receiving it and giving it out.
Thank you, Father. All too soon, we've come to the end of today's discussion. I believe you have been well informed. You've learned a lot. You've acquired enough to help you discern on your vocation. And if you are a parent watching us or a guardian, whatever you have acquired, teach your children so that when they decide or they come to tell you that they want to join the religious life, you know what to tell them. Or better still, you can still let them watch on social media. That is a recap of this program on Facebook, Cafdil Cape Coast, YouTube, Cafdil Edu, to hear for themselves and then make the decision as well. I did this beautiful conversation with Friar Moses Arthur, the novice master of the Franciscan Friars, minor conventuals. Matra. Yes, and then with the vocations director, Friar Francis Eduse Poku Atobra. Thank you very much, brothers, for joining me to this to do this conversation. We are very much grateful for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't forget, don't discourage anyone who wants to join the religious life or want to be a consecrated person. Don't discourage them, rather encourage them. So we'll meet again next week. Have a wonderful evening.